On a mission.
My name is Mackenzie Fielding. I live in Firth, Idaho. I have a pretty big family. This is some of them.
Hola.
I'm like the models.
Something I enjoy. I love dancing, playing the piano. Yeah. So I chose to do my report on Nelson Mandela. He lived in South Africa when he was 5. He sadly passed away not too long ago. And something that I just wanted to talk about was how he fought for the freedom of blacks. Many people in the world everywhere take advantage of the daily freedoms and rights that they have. But do they ever stop to think of who actually fought for those rights? Well, he spent all of his life just doing things to fight for the freedom and peace between blacks and whites in South Africa. And so South Africa was forever changed by him because he never stopped fighting. He never gave up. And he just wanted everyone to be able to love each other and live among one another in peace. Nelson Mandela was born in July 18th, 1918, in Mvezo, South Africa, and he was destined for greatness from birth. He was actually born a prince because his dad was Chief Henry Mandela of the Madiba clan of the Zola-speaking people. Just because he was a prince didn't mean that he had any of the rights that white people had. Because of his dark skin color, he was considered a menace to society. Nelson Mandela when he got a little bit older, he resigned from the chief position so that he could go to school. And he went to the South African Native College and then studied law at the University of Witwatersrand. And later in 1944, he joined the ANC, which is the African National Congress, and it's a black liberation group that wanted to fight for the freedom of blacks. Because of his determination in this group, he soon became the youth leader of the ANC, of their youth league, and him and a fellow leader, Oliver Tambo, decided to open up the first ever black law firm in South Africa. And they just wanted to help black people with their trials and everything that they were going through. So they mainly focused on blacks' trials. And while working on that, they also tried to help the ANC grow stronger and fight for more rights and freedoms for blacks. The ANC wanted to fight without violence, and they just wanted everyone to be in peace, and they did many different things like protests and a lot of different things. And the government just kept making different laws so that black people would have pretty much no rights. And when the ANC kept fighting and didn't give up, they kept making it worse and worse for blacks. And blacks were legally discriminated against. In housing, education, economic opportunity, and also a lot of other things. They couldn't vote, and they were subject. The ANC offered Nelson Mandela the leadership position, but he refused because he didn't want to be over it all. He just wanted to help fight. And soon the ANC and him and many other leaders in the ANC were arrested and charged for treason. And they went on trial and were eventually acquitted in 1961. But just because Nelson Mandela was arrested in the first place, he didn't give up and he kept fighting. So because of the ANC's fighting, the laws against blacks were being taken to extreme ends in South Africa. The black population had so minimal rights that they were barely even citizens. It's just like they existed, but they didn't do anything in the community. They were just kind of there. And Nelson Mandela decided that the nonviolent way to go about things was not helping, so he decided to go join the Spear of the Nation group, this is an underground group that sent things of sabotage against the government to try and help get them to fight and change the black laws. And so Nelson Mandela went through Africa trying to find funds for his cause, and soon was arrested because of his involvement with the continued acts of sabotage. And they didn't know that he was involved with that, but they charged him for treason once again. And this time they were able to find him guilty for that and send him to prison for 5 years. But during that, they found that he was connected to Spear of the Nation and the acts of sabotage, so they brought up his trial once again and changed his sentence to life imprisonment. And the first prison that he went to was the Robben Island prison. He wasn't the only one that went. There were many other leaders in Spear of the Nation and ANC that had to go to prison. And in the Robben Island prison, he didn't have a lot of opportunity. He just worked really hard. And soon the government banned all people from even speaking of Nelson Mandela. But that didn't mean that everyone forgot about their fearless hero. Soon Nelson Mandela was moved to the Paulsmoor prison, and this was the prison that had the highest security in Cape Town. So they said that they moved him there for different reasons, but a lot of people knew that it was actually because Nelson Mandela had been talking to his fellow inmates at Robben Island and was having too much of an influence on them with his cause. And so he was moved there and was put in solitary confinement for about 6 years and was only given a 30-minute visit with his wife once a week. And so soon the people found out that Nelson Mandela was moved here, and they were really mad about it, and they were trying to do different things. They tried everything, more protests, and were telling the government that he needed to be free, that they wanted him free so that he could keep fighting. And so P.W. Botha, because of their involvement with trying to get him free, he offered Nelson Mandela his freedom on the condition that Nelson Mandela stopped trying to fight against the government. But Nelson Mandela refused this because he didn't want to be free unless he was actually able to keep fighting and help the other black people. P.W. Botha tried again later to try and make the people satisfied, pretty much, but he once again refused and he said the words, "Only free men can negotiate. I cannot sell my birthright, nor am I prepared to sell the birthright of the people to be free." Because he knew that if he went out and wasn't the one to fight, no one would. So then, soon in August 1988, Mandela came down with a serious illness and almost died. So they moved him to a different prison, the Victor Verster prison, and it was like a little farm. And compared to the other prisons, this one was like a resort for Nelson Mandela because he actually had different things and he was able to have actually kind of a life, but he was also very weak and recovering from his illness. And finally, P.W. Botha resigned from the Prime Minister position of the government, and F.W. de Klerk took position and took control. And he realized that all of this stuff was not going to work, that soon the blacks would win and they would get their freedom. So he got rid of all apartheid, or how you say it, and he gave Nelson Mandela his freedom unconditionally. And Nelson Mandela on February 11th, 1990, stepped out of the Victor Verster prison with so many people waiting there to see him. When he walked out, a cheer came up and everyone saw the true hero of South Africa. Nelson Mandela he kept fighting because there were still many things that he had to work for. and he kept fighting and kept working towards it, and soon became the first ever black president of South Africa. Nelson Mandela did many things and finally got the freedom that he wanted for his people.
15 minutes worth of information.
No, she doesn't. Go.
And him and F.W. de Klerk were offered the Nobel Peace Prize because of their continuous fight, and they partnered together to keep fighting, and he became the president. And everyone in the world remembers Nelson Mandela for his not giving up and everything that he has done. And sadly, on December 5th, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away, and he had a huge impact on everyone around the world. And I'm just so grateful that he fought for people, for the blacks, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Okay, Jake, we're going to start.
Grab my thing.
Ready, go!